Hello everybody, welcome to podcast number 3 for Feed Your Geek. The name is Hawk. I'm also joined today by Mr. RetroResurrection. How are you doing, sir? Are you good?
Doing okay, yeah. I'm doing pretty good.
Hanging on in there?
Yeah,
I'm doing. Yeah. We're all hanging in there, you know, doing the living thing. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine, man. You know,
I am existing.
a lot of work, a lot of stuff, life, and holidays booked, you know, all that kind of stuff, keeping you busy.
Yeah, you got a busy schedule coming up. Starting tomorrow.
Yeah, starting tomorrow, yeah. In case anybody that is listening on this didn't realise they're not part of the Discord community, myself and some friends are going on an excavation for some retro video games. Something Mr. RetroResurrection should know just a little smidge about.
A bit.
As for the ones that are listening right now, I'm looking at his collection behind him, of which is vast and impressive.
And
But
part of it.
yeah, I mean, I see that Nintendo in the background and the box, and it makes me just it's instant envy.
I actually had to bring that from Maine.
You drove all the way to Maine.
Trip. No,
Wow.
I had to fly with it back. It basically took up my entire suitcase.
Jeez.
And it was just
and did you like fill the case with loads of like bubble wrap just so the ends didn't get dented in and
whatever
scuffed.
clothes I had? Yeah, I just kind of like
wrapped it around,
like worn
Yeah.
t-shirts. I just put them around the corners.
that makes sense. Okay, well, there are a few subjects I wanted to touch on this week. For any of you that didn't realise, of course, we have the website feedyourgeek.com where we post all kinds of stuff, not just gaming stuff. There's anime stuff, movie stuff, reviews, just general nerdy things. And one of the hot topics this week that I saw trending on social media was the recent trailer or teaser trailer for the next iteration of Street Fighter. That is Street Fighter 6. Did you watch the trailer? Have you seen the trailer, Retro? Have you checked out the 40-second or so trailer?
By the trailer, you're talking about two buff boys like just squaring off with each other. Yeah.
Did you see the tenseness? I mean, I was very impressed. You know, when he kind of grips his hand and then you see all the veins pop out and then the kind of steam rise off it.
Yeah, there's definitely some really, really good like subsurface, scattering.
Yeah, there was. I was very impressed by that. And then you see the little toe wiggle. Did you see that? Where it cuts to Ryu's toes and he does a weird toe wiggle.
I did not see that. I guess I didn't stick around. I didn't stick around for the foot portion of that. They threw.
It's all about the toes.
All the fans out there, yeah, all the tootsies.
Yeah.
No, I watched it. It was, you had to anticipate that there was another one coming at this point because 5 is.
It's been a long time. Yeah, I mean, what year was Street Fighter 5? Do we know off the top of our head? 2016, maybe.
I think it's about right. 2015, 2016.
Well, at least the base version of Street Fighter 5, right?
Yeah, the original, because it's seen a lot of additional content and variation. I don't know if you really call them re-releases. It's just kind of content updates. Street
Fighter is a very special game in terms of I find it very special because I really enjoy how it still perfectly encapsulates arcade spirit. You know, like it still feels like a fully fledged arcade, like a game I could walk into an arcade today and stick a quarter in or a pound or whatever it is you're from, and just 3 credits, winner stays on kind of job, and you just hammer at it, right? Especially when those games they keep the control mechanisms the same with being able to use joysticks instead of directional buttons on a controller, which you could still use, but I'm talking classic arcade fighters. In many ways the preferred means of playing these games, right? Even by professional players, you tend to see them using those forms of controllers, not like Hori controllers, and not the standard Dual Shock controllers or whatever platform it is that you're playing on.
Yeah, you don't see top tier Evo players walking up with a Microsoft controller, expecting to dominate the rankings. They usually have the little like laptop size like Sanwa joysticks with the slightly curved orientation of the button so that it fits their fingertips just perfectly.
And then you see somebody rock up with the bongos that you see from that Donkey Kong Country game on GameCube and absolutely hammer people with it, or a dance mat.
Yeah, I want to see somebody go to Evo with the Taiko controller.
Oh yeah,
just like drumming away furiously.
I'm trying to think of like obscure controllers somebody might even be able to use to play something like that on the PC. Well, PC mostly, but yeah.
Well, if you're talking obscure, I can tell you that the Dreamcast version of Soul Calibur, you can play it with the fishing rod.
Oh my. How would you even begin to beat some? How would you even begin to interpret movement with the fishing rod?
It's man. Part of it is actually motion controlled too, like the actual like gestures that you can use to like pretend like you're casting a line. It actually will like trigger weapon attacks.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember the controller vividly, but I'm trying to think how you would even. It must be like complete. There must be some software that sits between it to map.
Yeah,
map the motions, right? You've got to be able to remember the motions.
Yeah, but
that's insane.
Yeah, it is. There's video of it if you want to go on YouTube. Just look up like
Soul Calibur
fishing rod.
I think Soul Calibur is also one of those games. Tekken, Soul Calibur, Street Fighter. They still kind of perfectly encapsulate that arcade spirit, right? They kind of fully. They've not shied away from it. They've not tried to make it any. I mean, I suppose Tekken has more of a campaign. Because they do throw a lot. I suppose Soul Calibur does to an extent, but Tekken more so.
Soul Calibur is more of like an arcade playthrough. Like they've dabbled with the secondary play modes. Like I remember, did you ever play Soul Calibur 2?
Yeah,
that was the Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2 version. Do you remember doing like the Sword Master mode?
Yeah,
where you would go from like stage to stage. Yeah, that's kind of like the extent of what they've ever explored in that.
Yeah. I think the last Soul Calibur I played, I mean, I do own the latest one. Is it Soul Calibur 6? I think is the latest one.
Yeah.
I think the last Soul Calibur I played, well, I've not even played that, I do own it, but the previous Soul Calibur would have been the one with Yoda and Darth Vader. I don't remember which one that one was.
That was 4.
Yeah, so 360, 4. Right? 360 PlayStation 3. Yeah. I think Yoda was the 360 and Vader was the PlayStation 3, right?
Vader was PS3, and they both had Starkiller, which Starkiller was fun. He was a very broken character, but he wasn't nearly as broken as Yoda. Yoda, if you ever saw him in online competitive, it was just like instant disconnect.
I give up.
It's like, no, not even fighting you.
I'm not dealing with that right now. Yeah. And there's always players like that. There's always characters in games like that, right? I mean, we're talking Soul Calibur. I'm going all the way back to Soul Edge and being a child and being a young PlayStation 1 player, playing Soul Edge. And then whenever a friend would come around and they would immediately pick Voldo, and you think, no, I'm sorry, mate, it's not happening. That's not happening because you don't even know what you're doing. You're just going to spam buttons and I'm going to lose and get angry at it. So let's avoid that and choose somebody else.
Yeah. Same thing with like going into Tekken, you see somebody rock up with Yoshimitsu. You're like, something's not right.
Something's fishy.
Yeah.
Or Eddie Guerrero in Tekken 3. Yeah, sliding around the floor the entire game.
Yeah, it's also really interesting too because you brought up those 3 franchises: Tekken, Soul Calibur, and Street Fighter. Like they perfectly encapsulate that arcade sensation. And they also don't really ever steer out. They don't never like veer out of their own lanes either. They all have very, very different play styles, and they've not deviated from it. They've not ever tried to like dip into their competitors.
No. I think like in the case of those 3, they're so distinct that any attempt to kind of mimic another one would probably be seen with a bit of outrage, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, yeah. They did that, didn't they? There was that Street Fighter X Tekken crossover.
Yeah, I mean, Street Fighter did go full 3D for a while, didn't it? In terms of being able to sidestep characters, it's never always been 2D in the sense of it flat, as in you're facing each other. You could with Tekken and Soul Calibur, you can always sidestep attacks and back attack and all that stuff. Right, it's a 360-degree arena. Whereas Street Fighter, for most of the case, has always been 2D in the sense that you're either left or right, like Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat did the same thing as well, right? It went 3D at one point.
Yeah, they tried. And
failed gloriously.
They tried their best.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the name of that Mortal Kombat game. Was it Deception? Mortal Kombat Deception?
Yeah, Deception was...
Deadly Alliance?
Deadly Alliance was... They had multiple 3D versions because that all started with 4. If you remember that janky,
I don't know.
Really sharp looking mess.
Lots of angles, lots of jagged angles,
lots of sharp corners that you could poke your eye out on.
Which is funny, really. I mean, we're going to the subject of Mortal Kombat, where, you know, if you were to go back and play like the first trilogy, where they kind of use, it's not called, is it rotoscoping? Is what they call it? Where they film the actors and they kind of animate the real actors with the
it's like a digitizing, you know,
whatever
footage,
whatever like form, however they transform that or transfer that, because stylistically it works really well, like not just because it's like a staple, you know, it's like a point in video game history, so it's always going to be looked at fondly, but I think just naturally for the time it was a very good way of doing it, right? It was a way of bringing some like more realism to a franchise that is otherwise known or otherwise how can I say it, like otherworldly, you know, you don't necessarily see people getting ripped in half or impaled by spikes or bicycle kicking across, you know, platform or throwing fire or whatever it is that they were doing. And then when these studios like where Netherworld decide, is it Netherworld? Netherrealm, sorry. They decide to take it on 3D, and they jump ship from that and they go to fully rendered 3D. How much worse it can look by comparison. It just goes to show that style is everything. Doesn't matter how far you think you can push the graphics. If it's not strong style, it's never going to work.
No.
You know,
I mean, they tried a little bit too early to jump onto the whole, like, well, we need to transition to 3D because how else can we keep up? There were too many franchises that were doing that, and Mortal Kombat, a lot of fighting styles, especially Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, just there wasn't, you weren't creating Street Fighter anymore. You were creating this parody of Street Fighter almost, or
totally.
Of Mortal Kombat.
I mean, I wouldn't profess to be to have a lot of knowledge with regards to fighting games. I remember the ones I played them intensely as a child, as a kid, as a young teenager. With my recent foray or last foray into those kinds of games being Street Fighter 4 on the 360, and I haven't really bothered playing them since, whether that's Mortal Kombat, whether that's Street Fighter, whether that's Tekken, you know, I haven't bothered. It's just not necessarily a genre of game I tend to, which is funny really, because I really enjoy arcade experiences. I like arcade shoot, you know, I'm talking something like Metal Slug. I really enjoy arcade shooters. I enjoy it where it's kind of it reminds me, it's like nostalgic, right? When I was a kid. So it's funny that I don't really feel the hunger to want to pick those games up. But with regards to Street Fighter, of course, we had the recent teaser trailer. We had a bearded Ryu. We had the new character Luke, which we did a bit of research earlier, which was what the final DLC character that was released on the last version of Street Fighter 5, the previous version.
The very one,
hulking up, muscling up, looking like they're going to go for a round, and then we get the title card, slam. SF6 Street Fighter 6, and we get this god-awful logo that looks like it was made in 10 minutes. And and it also looks, you know, somebody, I think it was Mule was bringing up the subject a couple of weeks ago, where he said that, or it might have been last week, or it might have been you, Retro, actually. It said that it looked like it had 6 notifications. The Street Fighter had 6 notifications that hadn't been looked at yet, right?
The Street Fighter mobile app that you have on your phone, it's running in background, and it has six updates that you need to look at.
Yeah. So obviously the news this week was there's somebody on the internet, of course, naturally decides to spend their entire day looking up stock imagery, whether they must have picked it out or, you know, having seen it in the library before and thought, that looks miraculously similar. Anyway, whoever it was that discovered this, apparently there's this Adobe stock image going around the internet right now that costs around $80 to buy, that I would say is probably around 90% the same as this new Street Fighter logo, which has had a lot of people in uproar.
That thing costs $80 to buy?
I know, right?
That stock image? The pink... The
$80
hexagon.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever. Geez, I need to get into the stock imagery creation round.
NFTs. Don't get me started, Jesus. Whoever owns the NFT on that is about to make a lot of money. I never even considered that until just saying it. But yeah, so obviously there was a lot of news this week with regards to, you know, them effectively rushing the logo and copying something else that you could have bought for, you know, not a lot of money. I think the thing that's had people in uproar the most is it's such a deviation from their previous titles. You know, in the terms of logos, they've always been very like bold and aggressive, like visceral, haven't they? And this is quite subtle. It almost looks street, doesn't it? Like it's like spray painted on a wall almost, which is
you had a stencil and you sprayed it really quick.
Yeah, which is interesting.
It is kind of a shock because I mean, especially with Street Fighter V, it was they've maintained kind of a similar style to their titles. Street Fighter 4 kind of got a little bit off the rails. It was getting a little bit too like edgy, and then they brought it back to, you know, more of an homage to their like Street Fighter 2 and 3 logos with Street Fighter 5. So this is, I don't know if they're like, if Street Fighter 6 is going to try to rebrand the series. Who knows? All we have is a 40-second teaser. So
I mean, aesthetically, they'll probably go for the same, right? So, you know, what we've seen in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 has proven successful for Capcom. So, I can't imagine the game itself will differ too much in terms of, you know, how the characters look. You'll still get the meaty kind of 2D, 3D model kind of thing.
Yeah, if the teaser is anything to believe.
Yeah, because it does look very similar. And of course, Ryu beard has got me feeling things I didn't think I'd feel. He looks good with a beard. He looks good for a 35-year-old man.
Well, he's been bearded before, hasn't he?
I think he was bearded. I think there was a skin in Street Fighter 5 with a beard, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if he's been bearded in previous titles before that, to be honest. Not being necessarily...
Same.
Yeah, you know.
I could have sworn I saw that man with a beard at one point.
Yeah, who knows? There's been a lot of coverage. Street Fighter's had a lot of spin-offs, you know, not just like in video games, but, you know, movies. The best movie.
Oh, yeah.
Have you we're talking about that movie? Have you ever played Street Fighter the game, the movie, the game?
I have, because a good friend of mine, when we were younger, he was big into fighters as well, and so he had Street Fighter 2 and eventually Turbo, and then the movie came out, and obviously then subsequently the video game version of the movie. He's just like, well, Street Fighter, how bad could it be? And actually it's not terrible. Oh. For a movie tie-in game, it's not terrible.
I've never played it, right? So I don't want to shit on something I've never played on before, but I'll tell you this. Street Fighter the movie is good, and I'll have nobody say anything bad about it. It's a good movie. It knows what it is. It's cheesy. It's cheap. It gets all your most important characters in there. Yes, Ryu and Ken aren't necessarily like well casted. Neither is Guile, you know, being this supposed to be this like uber American bloke that is obviously not American.
Very strong Belgian accent.
Funny, you know what, with what, you know, I don't want to go into politics and what's happening around the world right now, you know, really. But some of there are parallels in that movie with regards to Bison and Putin that, you know, maybe we should take a second gander at some point in the future, because there's some questionable decisions by both maniacs in that case. However, moving on. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, it was an article that I caught on Game Informer, I believe. And let me just I think I've got the article up here so I can actually bring it up. Sorry, it was Eurogamer, sorry. It was written by a guy called Ed Nightingale, and it was an interview that they had done with Square Enix, or an executive that shall not be named, at Square Enix, talking about Square considering making more of these HD 2D remakes of their classic games, most notably the SNES library, apparently, is what they're trying to target. Obviously, last week we spoke about the Nintendo Direct. I spoke about that. You know, I was really looking forward to Live Alive, which is a remake of a game that we never got in the West that was on the SNES. And it just got me thinking about our opinions on Square going back into their library and making these kind of games, because it seems like it's a very popular thing right now. It's actually going to be, you know, a plausible business decision for them to go back and do, and not just something to please fans, right? Mm-hmm. Have you looked at that? Have you seen that? Have you checked out the news article? Have you ever seen?
Well,
seen anything about it?
I glanced at it really quick, just kind of get the gist of it. I didn't really see. There wasn't mention of specific titles that they're thinking of, like in the future of bringing out.
So the article I'm referencing here, like I said, it's on Eurogamer. So the first thing they bring up is that Live Alive was the clear front runner. There's a reason why they chose that game. Apparently, it was because, well, not necessarily because, but one of the reasons was the guy who originally made the game was very adamant that he wanted it released in the West, and it never got that release. So this was almost a dream come true for the original creator, which it doesn't say his name here, but so that was an interesting factoid that I saw there. But interestingly, they said that there were other games they considered as well. The one directly behind that they thought would be quite suitable was ActRaiser. Do you remember ActRaiser, the original ActRaiser?
I do.
Apparently, well, we had a recent ActRaiser game, right? I remember it coming out on Switch not too long ago. Kind of like a remaster kind of thing.
That's when I saw you type that. Yeah, when you were posting the article in Discord and you mentioned ActRaiser, I was just like, ActRaiser just came out again, didn't it? It was called ActRaiser Renaissance, I think.
It might very well have been.
Yeah, ActRaiser Renaissance, but it was just like a really high fidelity
remake of remaster,
of the original,
So ActRaiser isn't a game I'm too familiar with, but I'm guessing again it's a JRPG in the library for Square, of the many JRPG or IPs they control.
It's actually not really not a traditional JRPG at all. The game bounces back and forth between two different game modes where you're essentially it basically it's like SimCity for one portion of it. And there's SimCity mixed with a bit of tower defense, kind of like a little bit of dabbling with. I don't know if you remember the PC game. What was it called? Black and White. Where
I'm not familiar with that name.
You were a god, and basically you would do evil things, or you would
like I see what you mean. Right? Yep.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from.
It borrowed a lot of, not borrowed, but I guess it was just kind of implemented a lot of different game mechanics in this colony building version of mode that you played, but then you also would drop down into like an avatar, basically.
Right. Okay.
Fight monsters in a 2D side-scrolling hack and slash.
Right. Okay. I see. So it was kind of a blend of different games. So not necessarily a traditional turn-based JRPG that I thought it was going to be, based on the article. But interesting. So yeah, I mean, obviously we've had the new ActRaiser there, and we already know that the same team that worked on Octopath Traveler and most recently Triangle Strategy, which is releasing as of recording this. What's that? In a week, 4th of March. It's the 25th of February right now.
Yeah.
So we're not too far away from that, which is exciting. But we already know that team's going to be working on the Dragon Quest III HD remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, the 2D HD pixel remake. There's so many bloody words that you stick together for these things, right? And then, of course, as of recording this yesterday, or was it the day before? It might have been the day before now. Was Final Fantasy VI, the Pixel Remaster. So the final game in the original sextuplet of Pixel Remasters that Square has decided to grace us with, right? Which are only available on PC, ladies and gentlemen.
Not salty about that.
So it seems like there is general hunger for gamers to see more of these classic games from their older libraries that they'd like them to go and do. So I thought it'd be really fun or interesting to be able to pick out some of our favourite games that have yet to be remade, remastered. And if they were to be remade, remastered into this kind of like 2D HD style, what would you choose? Is there any kind of like clear front runners, like things that hasn't been, that you're kind of missing? Some people might say something like a new Chrono Trigger. I want that remade, remastered. Some people might say, they want something else. Do you have any yourself? Any kind of titles in mind that you think, they should go back and do this?
I really wouldn't mind if they go back. I'll give you 3. And
far away.
Two of them are not Square, that I really hope Capcom actually goes back to the Breath of Fire series and starts to revive that, and specifically taking the two on Super Nintendo, 1 and 2. Phenomenal games at the time. Some say the second one wasn't nearly as good. Debate rages on about that, but still 2 really good games. And they're still in the same vein as like traditional JRPGs that could easily be translated into this HD 2.5D style that you're seeing a lot of these games crop back up with.
Yeah.
And then another one, which is Square's, and it's a game that never came out here that maybe a lot of people don't know about. It was called Bahamut Lagoon. It was a JRPG, a tactical JRPG. It had elements kind of similar to Fire Emblem, but there was also party-based, like traditional, more JRPG battle arenas. You would move your parties around and strategize, and you could actually engage enemies on the battle map. But then also things would transition into a more traditional, like JRPG battle. But really, really awesome sprites in that. It had an interesting story, and actually a lot of the stuff was lifted straight from Final Fantasy VI. So hey, you already did the Pixels remaster of 6. It might be pretty easy to just kind of do a pixel remaster of Bahamut Lagoon and release it in the West.
Yeah, I mean the game that game came out originally in 1996. That would fall. I'd say that would probably fall into the target market of games that they would be considering remaking or remastering, or So were there any other games? So you said there was Bahamut Lagoon, and what was the other one? Sorry, it was
the first 2 Breath of Fires.
First 2 Breath of Fires. Yeah. So I only ever played Breath of Fire 2. I've never played any of the Breath of Fire, and I don't think I ever finished that. But I do remember enjoying it thoroughly. It wasn't the easiest game in the world. I remember it being quite slow, but I did quite enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, they'd be great games to remake. I mean, if I was to give some kind of choice as well, and not to select any of the ones that you've selected there, of which I'm not familiar with anyway, the first would probably be Mystic Quest, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, a title that I never got to play originally, and as a fan of the franchise, would be happy to see, or would like to see a kind of remake of, so I can understand what the game was all about, and and experience it with fresh eyes.
It was interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually know more about the soundtrack than I do about the game, which is funny. Because I've heard the soundtrack is very good. The original soundtrack is actually very good. And I've heard a lot of covers and remixes and remasters of the soundtrack since then. Other games, I'm just looking through a library here of like classic JRPGs that might have appeared on the Famicom. Oh, well, I mean, even later than the Famicom. We're thinking like PlayStation 1 era. And there's a few games on here that I have played that would be quite cool. So I think I'm going to pick one for PlayStation 1 here, and I'm probably going to say Threads of Fate, which is funny, really, considering that right now on stream, that is what you are playing. Am I right?
It is. Yes.
So yeah, seeing that game, because I have played Threads of Fate before. Recently, having watched your stream, it kind of reignited my interest in that game because, being born of a certain age, that game wasn't on my radar when it came out, originally dropped on the PlayStation. And it wasn't until a few years after that, when you kind of go back through libraries of games that you kind of find it. And it wasn't one that I paid particular interest to when it came out. Well, sorry, at that point when I played it anyway, it was kind of like a JRPG that's always been in the background. And I watched you play it the other day, and I thought, actually, this looks pretty good for all it's worth.
Yeah, that was the commentary I was seeing a lot. It's just like, how is it that this is a PlayStation game and it looks so damn crisp?
Yeah,
it's held up really well. It controls well. It's easy to pick up and play. It's not, if you're looking for like more of a traditional RPG fodder, then this is not the game for you. It's very, very simplistic. But you're playing it because it's easy to pick up and it has kind of a quirky story to it. But yeah, that's interesting. How would they approach it? Would they just make are you talking like a Trials of Mana kind of remake? Like we just saw like a year or two ago.
So yeah, I mean like the recent kind of like 3D anime-esque kind of Trials of Mana remake they did, like you say, not too long ago. And before that, they tried The Secret of Mana, right? Which I have played, and it isn't as bad as people kind of lean on. Well, in my opinion, it's not as bad as what people kind of make it out to be. It's certainly not the original. But yeah, something like Trials of Mana, which kind of aims at that kind of newer looking Dragon Quest feel to it, right? Which I think works quite well. Just give me a solid turn-based battle system that looks half decent UI. Give me anime characters and Japanese voices, and most likely I'm sold. I'm a very easy target market. And the very last one, and maybe that's come kind of out of the blue here because it is an RPG. It's not necessarily a JRPG. Would be Earthbound. I never got to play Earthbound originally. Having looked through recent playthroughs and watched people play through the game on Twitch, it looks crazy, it looks bizarre, it looks out there. Some of the comedy in it is absolutely fantastic. But because it's just of that age now where it can kind of lose you because of it, I would really like to see either a new Earthbound game on the Nintendo Switch. Make it exclusive, stick it on the Nintendo Switch. And either a remake or even a sequel. I'd be happy with a sequel as well, to be fair. But mostly Earthbound 1 remade. Stick it in that 2D engine, if you want to call it that.
Yeah,
and I think I'd really enjoy that. Right?
Yeah, if we're taking games from the PlayStation era as well, I think another one that lends heavily into this kind of remake. Actually, you could probably it might even be better suited for more of like a 3D anime remake,
right?
Like Trials of Mana for that we were discussing is Xenogears.
Yeah, Vagrant Story, Xenogears,
yeah,
because these Xenogears,
yeah, Vagrant Story would be like more of a
totally, I could see that
remake. But I was thinking about it because you have the two different styles of combat in that game. How you have the more traditional like sprite based battle arenas when you're playing as the people, but then you get into like the gear fights, and it's just like, could you imagine if they took like the HD 2.5D scrubbing for the people portion of it, but then made like really awesome looking like 3D anime mecha,
that would be pretty cool
combat when you're actually in the gears.
Yeah, I could totally get behind that. Anime mechs, I'm in. I don't care. Just I'm in.
I thought that would pique your interest.
I mean, there were a few other games here that I can see on some lists that other people seem to be really interested in. I'm just looking at kind of like hype and anticipation on the internet based on this news, what people are kind of suggesting here. Some people are suggesting Ogre Battle, the March of the Black Queen, if you're familiar with that game.
Okay.
Not having played it myself, I'm not familiar with it. There's another one here. Let me just scroll up a little bit. Secret of Evermore. We touched on before we started recording tonight. Actually, we're talking about Secret of Evermore. Illusion of Gaia is another one. I'm not familiar with that game either, to be fair.
It's kind of bare bones. It's action RPG, so
right.
It's, basically, you just kind of go around to different locales and complete dungeons, and you'll fight a boss. And your stats do kind of progress gradually. Basically, just your health and strength are the only two stats that you really care about. Like how much damage do you do, and how much damage can you take. And I played it a couple years ago on stream. That was actually the first time I played it. It's a middling offering. From their library. So I don't foresee that as being one that they're going to be strongly considering for this kind of revival.
Yeah. What about something like Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals? I think Lufia 2 went by another name, didn't it? I think Lufia was what we had in the West, and in the East they called it something completely different, I believe.
Well, I know it as Lufia. It was Lufia here. I'm not sure what it might have been called in the East. But they would be really changing the way they would be really drastically changing the presentation of those games. So
yeah, I mean, it does say here that it did get a remake on the DS. Funnily enough, one that I haven't played.
Yeah, it did. It's actually not bad. The DS version is not bad at all. I mean, a lot of the GBA and DS remakes of popular Square games were very well received. So
the other name is S Polis Denki 2. I'm guessing that's maybe a Japanese translation. I'm not sure what that means in Japanese. For any people that are listening that understand what I've just said there, Est Polis Denki 2, or Lufia 2 as we know it here. Other games on this list, Breath of Fire 2, obviously you said Breath of Fire 1 and 2. The Seventh Saga, never heard of it. Soul.
It's okay. That one I don't see really being remade.
No. I mean, looking at the picture here, I can't see that ever being. Soul Blazer, Shadowrun, and Golden Sun.
Soul Blazer, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
I think Golden Sun 2 is what's been listed here. Preferred.
Yeah, Golden Sun is. Talk about both a series of games that is beloved, but also kind of unknown. As a lot of people didn't play it. There was on the Game Boy Advance, and then they had a DS game. I actually haven't played the DS game, but I adored the two on the Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
They would be perfect candidates for this kind of revival.
Yeah. Do you know what I would really? Do you know what? I tell you what I really hope for here, Retro. What I hear, and I can hear everybody listening to this podcast right now saying, "Liam, just say the words. Just say it. Dragon Quest 8." And then we ascend into the sky in pure bliss as we play Dragon Quest 8 again with brand new graphics. You know what? If they took Dragon Quest 11, if they just made Dragon Quest 8 like Dragon Quest 11, I think that would be. I don't think I'd need another Dragon Quest for a good 20 years. I think I'd be happy with that.
I don't see any other natural progression of the game anyway. Because it looked damn good at the time on PS2. So you're only talking about a little bit of spit polish to bring that game back out.
Yeah, I mean that's not even if you're playing it with an emulator, I suppose, because you can touch it up even more with emulators these days, or smellulators, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what are your opinions on it? Do you think it's a good thing? I mean, there are games, you know, that you might want to see, but do you think it's a good thing? Would you rather Square focus on the future, or are you happy to see them go back into their library and kind of introduce new players to old games?
I think now with they've positioned themselves. You notice that they're not talking about these kind of revivals until after they've at least dangled the carrot in front of people that yes, Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. Yeah, we are working on it. Because if they hadn't announced Final Fantasy 16 by this point, people would be screaming bloody murder.
Correct.
Like, you know, why the fuck are you doing this? Why are you going back to these old games just to rehash them? Now they've sated everybody's appetite for the new, and now's the perfect time to hit them right there in the nostalgia. You know, get them a kidney shot right in the side, get them on their knees, and you can get the money for all of these remade old games.
Yeah, exactly. You want Legendary Dragoon? Here's Legendary Dragoon, right in the rib, like.
Legendary Dragoon.
Yeah,
God, if you're listening, if you've never played Legend of Dragoon, what the fuck are you doing with yourself?
Dragon Valor, give me a Dragon Valor remake. A game no one's ever played, but I want it. Right, so everyone's got their own opinions, and there's going to be so many games out there where people are like, remake this one game that I played as a kid that no one else has ever played because I want it.
You know what I haven't heard yet is I haven't seen a comment, and I'm guessing it's because people know why, because Triangle Strategy is just right around the corner.
Tactics,
maybe nobody's screaming for tactics right now. Like, you're about to get it. It's right there.
It's Final Fantasy Tactics. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's Final Fantasy Tactics. And do you know what? I'm all for it because War of the Lions was my favorite PSP game. I never played the Advanced, so I couldn't really say in those cases. But if we're talking like PSP library, my favorite game by far, was War of the Lions easily.
I have heard so many people say that, like, if you've never played Tactics, then try to get your hands on the PSP version somehow. Yeah,
far superior.
The advanced games they're their own beast. They really don't have a story to them. It's
I couldn't tell you the story for War of the Lions, mate. It's just with the amount of jobs in that game and trying to find them all, and I paid no attention to the story.
Well, yeah, that's Tactics versions of Pokemon. It's just you unlock all the classes, but at least there are characters that you follow through each chapter.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, true. There is true.
Whereas Advance, all I really remember is we're a bunch of school kids that somehow got transported to Ivalice, and now we're like in charge of a guild of mercenaries for some reason. It's like, here's your swords and shields and magic. Go kill people. It's like, oh,
go.
Wow, this got dark really quick.
So the next subject I wanted to talk about was the recent monthly games. So March 2022 that we're getting for PS Plus. So something that I don't think we've spoken about on the podcast today is the stuff that's out at the time that we might be getting free, and a segment that I thought might be useful for people out there that haven't played any of these games before, and maybe think of what our opinions are, whether they're worth picking up. I think if you pay for PS Plus, I think every game really that they release is worth at least adding to your library, even if you never intend to play it, which is 99% of the ones that I add to my own library. Oh, yeah. But this month caught my attention because the game leading the line there is Ghost Runner, a game which I really enjoyed playing on PC when it first launched. I hammered in the first week that it launched. And it's the PlayStation 5 version, no less, so you're getting the 60 frames per second, sweet graphics, ray tracing, all that jazz. And it's always been incredibly cheap to buy on the PlayStation, to be honest to it. It's been out for a while now. It's available on PC. It's available on the Nintendo Switch. It's available on PlayStation, and it's available on Xbox. It's not unique to any other.
Open up that can of worms.
I'm sorry, but that game on the Nintendo Switch must look like a potato with a sword.
I'm not going to say you're not justified in that commentary when it comes to that game.
but yeah, so the games we've got this month are Ghost Runner, as I mentioned there. We've got Team Sonic Racing, which has been out for a long time. Ark Survival Evolved, which I'm pretty sure has been free before. In one capacity or another, or several capacities, and then surprisingly, which I actually thought was completely free anyway, is the multiplayer edition to Ghost of Sushima. So Ghost of Tsushima Legends, which I somehow already owned but don't remember paying for when I bought Ghost of Tsushima on the PS4. So it's an interesting lineup. We'll start with Ghost Runner. Have you ever checked out Ghost Runner? I think you may have checked me stream it at one point or another, so you're aware of it, but haven't ever played it. Do you think this would be the time now? Would you give it a try?
Probably, yeah. I mean, if it's just coming with my subscription, obviously I'll tag it and add it to my library. This would be one of those instances where I would probably pick it up, play it for a little bit, see if it sticks.
The reason why I'm asking you that, Retro, is because of the recent patch with Cyberpunk 2077 and it getting a lot of positive feedback from players now, right? Cyberpunk is getting back into a hot topic at this point in time, and if you don't own the game and you're not playing it right now, what better game to play right now than a Cyberpunk game, which Ghost Runner is, right? It's a very quick, twitchy platforming video game. One hit and you're dead. You've got to be very swift, calculating, and happy to die and die and die and die and die.
Now that you've mentioned that it's one hit kill, I think
it's dread. It's dread.
I've had my fill of that for at least the time being, and but I'll certainly tag it and just kind of keep it in the background if I want to install it. Yeah, I would try it though. I definitely had a lot of fun watching you stream it.
It's got a killer soundtrack as well. Annual Deluxe. Yeah. Just heavy synth wave, dong 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 as you're kind of chopping your way through cybernetic enemies, bouncing off walls and deflecting bullets in slow motion. It's very good, very satisfying. It's not a very long game either. It's between 10 and 12 hours. It's not the longest game in the world. The story, however, if you were to ask me what happens in the story, I couldn't tell you. It's one big old mindfuck. It doesn't give you enough time at all. Yeah. Essentially, you play. All I remember is you play like a specialized robot. You wake up, you're the last one of your kind of unit, and you slowly remember who you are and what you were doing and why you woke up with part of your memory missing and all that stuff, with an aim in mind at the end, and then you find out. Sounds like something you've heard before.
Another game that I played where you play as this cyber ninja that wakes up and he's the last of his kind.
Is there a shadow by any chance?
There might have been a shadow in the title.
But yeah, I mean, something like Cyber Shadow. Yeah, I mean, in fact, that harkens back to the classic, these kind of like old games that are being remade. All these games that are being made intentionally to look old, right? So, Infonax being one of the more recent ones that I've been playing, which is basically Castlevania, right?
intentionally looking old and also intentionally being difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Harkening back to the quote unquote NES hard.
Yeah, right.
Days of gaming.
It's certainly seen an influx of new titles that people seem to be latching onto quite nicely right now. Mm-hmm. So the other game on the line, or the other games on the lineup, we'll start with Team Sonic Racing. Have you ever played that before? It's the Sonic's version of Mario Kart, essentially.
Yeah, right? Yeah. No, I played a bit of it. I think it was free on something that I played. Might have been PS4. Yeah, it's a solid kart racer. I enjoyed the bit I played of it, but me, I get into a kart racer and I'm immediately thinking I should really be playing Mario Kart.
The game's done perfectly well when they've reminded you to play something else.
Yeah. It's like you struck
all I want to know, all I've never played Team Sonic Racing, and I would consider myself a Sonic fan, right? I do enjoy them. I enjoy the soundtracks mostly. Recently I've been really enjoying the Sonic Colors Ultimate soundtrack, just because they're very simple soundtracks, Eurobeat, cheesy. And then it kind of like sparked remembering things like Sonic Heroes. And all I really want to know is, can I listen to the Sonic Heroes intro while I'm racing as Sonic or Knuckles or Eggman or whatever? Because that would be sick.
I don't clue. Enough time. Yeah, I have no.
What comes up must come down. I love that song. It's great. So cheesy.
I think you could fix that just yourself by having.
Yeah, true. YouTube That's very true.
Just have a window open somewhere, listening to that. then you'd be perfectly fine.
Exactly.
But yeah, so if it's free,
perfectly slow kart racer, worth it. Yeah,
exactly.
Did you ever play with friends? Is it one of those games where it's worth playing with friends, maybe not solo?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely make sure you get like a couch cup.
It's like Mario Kart, right? You could time trial yourself on Mario Kart, but most of the fun comes by playing or fucking over other players, right?
You'll just tear your hair out if you just do it solo.
Yeah.
For too long.
100%. You're just seeing when you walk after you've been like time trialing yourself. You come off the Nintendo Switch, you walk around your kitchen, you start seeing yourself in the future, and how much more efficient you were at getting that milk out of the cupboard or taking the milk out of the fridge, and you're kind of trying to beat yourself. Anyway, getting onto the subject. Keeping on the subject, what up next? We had Ark Survival Evolved, right, which is a big open sandbox survival game with mech dinosaurs, which seem to be very popular right now with Horizon Forbidden West. Mm-hmm. I don't know much about it. I've never played it. I just know it's a survival game. If you played one survival game, you mostly played them all.
Yeah.
So
I didn't do much in Ark. Maybe about a year after it came out, I played on a friend's private server for a bit and quickly got bored of it.
Yeah, it seems to do the same stuff as everybody else. It's not really unique in any way. Build a base, defend your base, find resources, raid other bases, server wipes, however often it wipes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you're going to play it on a public server, then for the love of God, don't play it on a PvP server.
Well, I do remember Ark Survival Evolved running quite badly on the PlayStation originally. That could be different now. I haven't touched it, so
it ran quite badly on the PC as well. But
right, yeah, it's just a bad game. Don't play it now, mate. It's again it was questionable. Again, I suppose if it's part of the bundle, maybe stick it on your backlog, play it later on down the line. If you've got if you want to sink a bit of time into it, go ahead. I mean, I think the closest comparison I can make to it is probably Conan Exiles. If you've played Conan Exiles, Ark Survival Evolved is the same thing with dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
pretty much. And then lastly on to Ghost of Tsushima Legends, which is the multiplayer tie-in into the base game that sees you and I think it's either 3 or 4 friends facing off against demons. They're using Jin, and you don't actually play as Jin, funnily enough. It's a new character. It's completely outside of Ghost of Tsushima's main story. Where you basically play demons and you just play through missions, and the missions get harder as you go along, tackling camps and all that kind of jazz. Did you ever get an opportunity to play that? Did you play Ghost of Tsushima actually?
I actually own it on PS4, and I sank a decent amount of time into it. But it's one of those things where, again, it's just how I play those kind of open world games, and I progress filling out the map far quicker than I progress the story. And I something else, some other shiny, like new shiny dropped while I was playing that, and I remember putting it down. I haven't touched it since, and I really should.
That's
go back
that's the problem, though, isn't it? You know, we're getting slightly awry here, but I think this is quite a cool question. Is well, not a question. It's just an idea, which is that there's so many games that come out nowadays. You know, I mean, February and March. I mean, just look at this week alone. Just look at February and March combined is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but there's nobody in. You could not have a job and you still wouldn't be able to play through all these games. These AAA games, I'm talking as well, that have dropped in the last 4 weeks. With the biggest one having dropped yesterday or today.
Mm-hmm.
Today? Yesterday?
Today, yeah. Well,
today. With Elden Ring,
where you were on the globe.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in Australia, I think it was like 10 o'clock UK time. They were already playing it, and 10 a.m. UK time they were already playing it in Australia. Or was it 10 p.m. UK time? They were already. It doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. So it's with so many games. You said there that you probably played it, and then something, you know, a new game came out, or you kind of attracted, you know, your attraction was taken elsewhere by something else. That happens far more often than you would, you know, that's the norm right now. I mean, how many games you realistically, you know, especially open world games, how many open world games can you finish by the time this next exciting adventure pops up with this highly anticipated game you've been waiting 2 years for since its trailer dropped at E3 2 years ago, you know? Most recently, that's happened to me with Metroid Dread, right? I had every intention to pick up Metroid Dread and play Metroid Dread. And then, and then I saw Demon Slayer, and I was like, oh, I really want to buy Demon Slayer. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I should start Demon. Oh, no, wait a minute. There's this game called Skyward Sword HD. Oh, I really fancy playing a Zelda game. Maybe I should play. You know what? Actually, Elden Ring comes out today. Maybe I should play Elden. And I've just gone and bought, like, you know, you just keep on buying games. And I've put 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds into any of these games, and it tends to be the case going forwards, right?
Yeah.
How about yourself? I'm guessing you suffer from the same problem, right? Well, being a collector, I can imagine so, even more so.
Well, even if we just kind of ignore the old stuff when we're talking, you know, the current platforms.
Yeah.
I have played. I mean, I think I've played one game, two on PlayStation 5. That's it. That's the only.
Which are those games?
If 2 games
don't mind me asking.
PS5 since I got it, I had finished Rift Apart.
Yep.
And Demon Souls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I've played to completion on PS5.
It's funny you should say that, because I've played a bunch of games on PS5, but if we're talking finished, there's only one game I've actually finished on PlayStation 5, and that was Demon Souls. I've not finished any other game. I've got at least 9-10 games on the PlayStation 5, like exclusive, only PlayStation 5 versions that I have.
Yeah,
most of them are in cellophane in my cupboard still. That's how dirty I feel.
I've got a copy of Miles Morales still sitting in the cupboard.
Guilty.
Nio collection still sitting there.
The Neo collection.
Yeah. And I've got just PS5.
Let me think. Let me have a look. Actually, you know what? You're gonna have to keep him busy for a sec. Let me have a look.
But yeah, if we're talking like a Switch is the system that I'm absolutely notorious for just picking something up, playing it for 30 minutes, and then not doing anything with it after that point. That's been my biggest weakness right now. I'm surprised actually at how much time I've actually put into, like, my current fad right now is I'm playing Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Yeah,
I love that. I love it.
I
love it. Hawk. He doesn't
just like it. He loves it.
Yeah, I love it. It's so
best
easy
Pokemon game ever, as most people seem to be saying.
Oh no,
no. Well, it seems honestly, you go on the internet right now, mate, and you'll see all kinds of like opinions on it, and a lot of them it's the greatest game. It's the greatest Pokemon game they've made. The Game Freak have made.
See, I think a lot of people are taking. I'm not saying they're in.
You're going to get caught up in the hype, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to get caught up in like the argument is if it's the best. You know, people have their own opinions. I think here's what I can say about it: it's the best thing to happen to Pokemon in a long time.
To freshen up the formula.
Yeah, it's. I told Mule this. I forget who else I told this. I was like, this is the first time playing a Pokemon game where I've actually given two flying fucks about the story.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So that is never ever the case in a Pokemon game. You just fly through it, don't you? You know what you're getting.
You catch your monsters, you build your team, your crack squad, and you just bulldoze the 8 gym leaders. Then you go to the Elite Four, become the champion,
that's it. Yeah,
and you're done.
The fanfare.
Was there a story? No. It was just a battle gauntlet to get to
one long battle gauntlet with it, where you collect monsters along the way.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I'm actually kind of like, ooh, okay. I wonder where this is going. There's like actual lore going on in the background here. I think a lot of people are also getting intrigued by it because since it's set in the past of Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, it's set hundreds of years before that. People are like making correlations. They're like, oh, okay, so this happened back in Arceus, and so it has these kind of implications of what was going on in Diamond and Pearl. This is the first time that they've ever actually like tried to make any sort of narrative connection between two different Pokemon games.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about that, to be honest. Some kind of like, because most of them are like I don't want to pretend like I know much about Pokemon, but they all are based like on regions, right? Like you have Johto and. No, is it Johto as a region? I don't know. And then you have Galar,
Kanto and Johto, and Galar was Sword and Shield. But everything you were dealing with was it was like the local politics of that region.
Exactly. Yeah, you're kind of encapsulated by it all. I mean, Pokemon Sword I really enjoyed. Again, just because I knew what I was getting. It wasn't overly complicated, although the ending did stretch a little too far, in my opinion. I didn't know 90% of the Pokemon. I mean, if it's not in the original 151, or 152, however many there were originally. Not include. Well, yeah, I'm not going to know who they are. Let's put it that way. The last Pokemon game I played before on Sword was Yellow, so that gives you context as to how much of a Pokemon fan I am. Skipped all the Game Boy game, like the Game Boy Advance games, the DS games, completely gone.
See, you missed. Like you asked if Arceus is the best one, and so you skipped over the two that I think are the best. Yeah,
which is Diamond and Pearl, Ruby and Sapphire, Gold and Silver. Okay,
Gold and Silver.
So how many? So you've got like X and Y, Gold, Silver, Diamond, Pearl, Ruby, Sapphire, Black and White. I like how I know the Pokemon games, but I've never played them. Sun and Moon.
Yeah.
You got the Leaf Red and
those were just
remakes.
Those were remakes of Red and
you got that Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond most recently.
Yeah. Which I'll admit, after playing Arceus, it's going to take a very strong effort for me to actually go back and try to play through
to go back to a classic game.
Well, just because also how poorly made Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were. They were a stopgap just to keep people entertained before Arceus came out.
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt as well, in terms of the promotion, because it was people who didn't care when the games were, the trailers and all that stuff were happening. They kind of prepared us with these two new games, or these two rehashes of these classic games that people tend to like. But all the questions that people were asking were around Arceus, right? Because the trailers we were seeing, they didn't look great. The performance didn't look great. So I think there was a lot of negativity surrounding the release before the game came out, simply because of the way the game looks, not necessarily because of how the game plays. I think the concept of an open world Pokemon game where you kind of hide in bushes and throw Pokeballs is exciting to most fans of that franchise. So I'm glad that it's kind of it's worked out for them. They've found a new formula now, and with the success of Arceus Legends, I can very well see mainline Pokemon games, not necessarily spin-offs like Mystery Dungeon or anything like that, but mainline Pokemon games being. You might see more like remakes. Who knows? You might see a Silver and Gold remake on the Nintendo Switch whilst they work on Arceus Legends 2. Who knows? Or whatever comes after Arceus Legends or Legends Arceus, whatever it's called.
Yeah, who knows what'll coming next.
Yeah. So everybody knows that the best Pokemon is Mr. Mime, and that's the end of that conversation. I'm joking. I believe somebody the other day was telling me that there's a female Mr. Mime, a Miss Mime, and it blew my mind. I thought, you know what? Yeah. He's not alone anymore. He's not alone anymore.
there is a Miss Mime.
He's the creepiest looking motherfucker ever, isn't he, Mr. Mime? Jesus. Yes, I've seen plenty of faces like that in the newspaper. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Probably be on a lot of lists as well.
Mugshots, yeah.
I'll tell you what I watched very briefly. I mean, we'll tie up the podcast a minute, ladies and gentlemen, but I'll tell you what I watched the other day, which was quite funny. I only caught like a little bit of it, is the Mr. Mime scene in Detective Pikachu. I'm not sure if you've seen Detective Pikachu. And yeah, it made me laugh. I'm not going to lie. Where they're interrogating him.
Yeah.
It made me laugh, and it let me laugh more than it probably should have.
I mean, it's really dark.
It's really dark, yeah. It gets really dark.
I mean, that was actually something you bring up Detective Pikachu, and so like anybody listening, if you have not seen it, here's how I'll describe it as like whether it was successful as a Pokemon movie or just successful as a movie or not. My dad and my older sister both watched it because it was on TV at one point around Christmas time. They know jack all about Pokemon and they don't play video games. They were entertained by that movie.
Yeah,
my dad, for out of just the blue when it was over, he looked at me. He was just like, "That wasn't that bad." It's like I was entertained. It just blew my.
There was enjoyment there. There was enjoyment there. I understand why you like Pokemon, son. Why you've enjoyed Pokemon for the last 30 years.
Not that far. Just, commentary. It's like it was an entertaining movie.
There are lots of. Yeah, that's it. It has a beginning, middle, of an end. It doesn't necessarily. You don't have to have any knowledge of Pokemon to be able to enjoy it. You just need to kind of. It's draped in realism, but it's got subtle humor that is both family friendly and also has adult undertones, which is also good for the adults, right? A lot of children's cartoons have that these days. It kind of goes over the kids' heads, but the adults are paying attention. They kind of get it. But yeah, so I suppose what I was trying to say is that I'm glad the formula works for them. Exciting times for Pokemon fans for sure. But that's going to be the end of the podcast this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining myself, Mr. HokutoPain. Joined this week again by the lovely, ravishing, gorgeous, handsome fellow that is RetroResurrection. Thank you very much for joining me this week, mate.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you on the next one. See you later, gents. See you later, ladies. Bye-bye.